Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I've been making some interesting videos lately, and there is a method to my madness. Looking at my computer screen here, and we know I just finished Series 123, Channeling Cryon, Part 1, and then 112 before that, so they're not in sequence by number. And that would be the Edgar Cayce story of Jesus, the early years, Part 5. So apparently, according to the raw material, which was the one I did before that, when Ra was questioned, channeled, by the way, while the human being was in a trance, who was speaking through Edgar Cayce? And he said, no one. Edgar Cayce was accessing the Akashic Records. Some kind of, I guess, memory bank in space. Before that, the reappearance of the Christ, Alice Bailey, one of the people of the Theophist Society that Helena Blavatsky and others created, and they also created the Lucifer Publishing Company to publish the Theophist Society's material, a lot of it being the New Age material, and also the Lucifer magazine, and a lot of the books. If you look on the index, you'll see Lucifer Publishing, and later renamed Lucas Trust, or Lucas Publishing. It's very interesting to see where the stuff comes from. Before that, it was Messengers of Deception, UFO Contact, and Cults. So my suspicions are that these beings that are even in the Bible, Archons, Watchers, Nephilim, Zachariah Stitchin's material, the Anunnaki, the gray aliens, reptilians, ghost angels, elves, pixies, as bizarre as it all sounds. But Barbara Marcinek, when she channels, mentions those beings. So I've got this focus on the channeling thing, trying to help me and others who want to know understand what the occult is, what Jewish mysticism is, what it means. Are there malevolent evil forces out there bent on our enslavement, beings that hate humankind? Did it have anything to do with the battle in the heavenly realm where a third of the angels were cast out? The Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, so much more. Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism, Part 1. So I thought, after doing that, on May 4th, this is the 20th, so 16 days ago, so this thing's just on a roll. You can't just, I didn't want to just go to Major Trends in Mysticism Part 2. I had to insert those other videos for a reason. And sometimes it's not really such a planned thing up here, consciously. It's because I allow myself to let it come. So it's called an intuitive thing, which people who are psychic or try to learn to use psychic abilities, they begin by learning to listen to their intuitive self. In other words, just let it come to you. I might even walk around for a few days in my normal life, not able to make a video because I'm not sure what I should say next to make it coherent, to gel together. But anyways, now it's time to do Part 2. And after I inserted those other videos in between Part 1 and now this one, Part 2, maybe it will make some sense, and this intuitive thing about human reality spiritualism, our souls, the heavenly bodies. I believe somehow, some way, God does interact with our life, this other dimension. And of course, the big question there is, which God, and in what ways would they interact? Would certain peoples be communicating with certain angel beings, watchers, archons, aliens, if you will, for their own personal gain? And before anybody says, "Oh, Rick, you're crazy," how many people and forces are working for their own personal gain right now all over the world at the expense of others to the nth degree? Just, they're getting richer and richer and richer, and the rest of us are at their mercy. This talk of crashing the stock market, gold plummeting, and then eventually it'll go high again, and all the poor people, the regular citizens of the world, will sell all their gold. Strangely enough, or ironically enough, the economic bounces, the downturns, have already forced a lot of people to sell their gold. It used to be you would see a sign on a corner or a store on the corner everywhere, "We buy gold." So what's going on? Obviously everything is planned. This new age and new world order. Jade Helm 15 in 2015. 911. It's acknowledged even in the Cryon material channeled that it was one of those steps necessary, although it's painful, to bring about this new paradigm, this new reality. Is it like the Hunger Games movie? So anyways, I wanted to go back to this book. So before I do that, I'll talk about a couple other books just to kind of, again, set the stage. Edward Hendry. What series was that? 69. Bloody Zion. Quite the book. I made some videos on that. Go watch them. See what's quoted in here. Thorough researcher. He wrote many books, Edward Hendry. And again, I mentioned this repeatedly because it's that important. But Rabbi Marvin Antelman, to eliminate the opate. The opate is, now that we're having this conversation with channeling, the opate is your, me, normal people, Christians all over the world, other religions probably too, the Islamic people, to get them to not believe in God anymore and quit the communication with God, which would result in God assisting them. Why would they want to do that? And according to the Sabbatianism cult of some Jewish people, notice I didn't say all, but they're definitely into a evil opposite of the Ten Commandments agenda. And apparently some of these people into some of these cults believe in redemption, some kind of payment for their sins. They say because it's so hard to be good, you have to be really good to be forgiven, redeemed. The other path is to be really bad. Sabbatianism. I went over that in the Encyclopedia Judaica, Sabbatai Zivi, and the story about him, and we'll be looking at that again. He declared himself the Messiah, and the whole Jewish community all over Europe, the known world then, was embracing it. Jesus was prophesied as the coming Messiah. All the details were fulfilled. But when he arrived and he preached a message of truly loving one another, we are one another's brother, the Pharisees, the leader of the Jewish people, that wasn't the kind of king they were looking for. So they had him crucified. And they've been living with that for a couple thousand years. And I'm sure, like any kind of other burning thought, or, you know, like somebody who did something really bad, it eats at them and eats at them. Even people who become murderers, a lot of them, because they don't get caught, it eats at them and it's in their mind. It drives them a little mad. And then they want to get away with it again and kill again. They become serial killers. So not all Jews, and probably many of the people who call themselves Jews right now, are really not. I was watching a Jeff Rentz and Tex Mars video, and they were discussing this at length this morning. And I've had so much other material. Apparently they're from the Poland area, Ukraine, part of Russia, the Khazarians, who adopted the Jewish religion and were seriously into the Kabbalah. Here we go. And many Kabbalists were accused of sorcery. So anyways, Rabbi Marvin Antelman, the leader of the Jewish Congress for the United States, no small guy, but the kind of Jewish person that the Zionist Jewish people had to get rid of. A Torah Jew, they call them, because they study the Torah Bible, which fundamentally is the teachings of the Old Testament. And the Reformed, or the Jews who turned away from God, are the Talmud, Kabbalistic, Zohar, different books, instruction guides on how they can have a control over the world, over others, how they should behave in a seemingly malevolent, evil fashion. So they're twisting this Kabbalistic teachings and somehow getting the rest of the people of the world to voluntarily embrace the thinking and turn away from God. This is what it all seems like. And one of those tools, like in the Cryon material, he said there will be, something, an ascension or a new earth. But some of the things that happen or have happened were required to bring this about, although they could be painful. And Webster Tarpley here in this book, I made video on this, number 12. So you can see when I started this series, after I read a book like this, or Henry McCall, PhD, Jewish author in Canada, the Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world, which are the same people as the banksters and the Zionists, and all the leadership of all the secret societies. You can tell in the symbols, if you learn how to read the symbols. But they had to do 911 because they have to kind of get the people patriotic, to be on board for this destruction of the entire Middle East, bombing all the buildings like they're doing to Syria right now. Since Donald Trump is now the president, they've decided to bring the hammer down on Syria even harder, while there's a lot of other craziness in the news, which I suspect a lot of it's distraction, to get everybody to look over that way when they should be looking over that way. We the people need to wake up. Jim Mars, I'm just mentioning this again, relationship, PSI spies. So does the government, look at the aura around that man, going through the lighted door, the picture. It says a lot if you understand. But the military, the secret ops programs all over the world, controlled, I suspect, by the Illuminati Zionist secret society types who are into Satanism and Luciferianism. We've all seen all the indicators on the rituals, from tunnel openings to Olympic openings, Super Bowl halftime shows, Emmys, Grammys, and so much more. Movies, TV shows, even a TV show called Lucifer. Trying to mess with our mind. But spies, people who are trained to go into trances, leave their bodies and spy on other people, or actually take control of other bodies or do things. How far have they come with this technology? What are they doing with CERN? Don't you think that's part of it? I made one video on this book, About the, as you can see by the star there, and the author's name, William Shanobium, Masonry Beyond the Light. They're always talking about the light. Lucifer is known as the light being. Lucas means light. So much more. So we're talking about control of fallen angels, as much as most people don't want to get into that and believe that. I don't blame them. But at some point, I guess we have to address reality. What is it? I mean, Carlos Castaneda wasn't going in that direction. Look at this guy walking in some kind of surreal world with a bright light for a head. He went down to Mexico and spent many years with the Shama and some other Shamas, people that the Shama introduced him to. I guess you could call it a magician, and that magician knew other magicians. Or you could call it a witch, and that witch knew other witches. But he took the drug, and he entered that other surreal world. And he described it pretty well. I don't know if I made enough videos on this book, or should I make another? I'll have to relook at it. I've got so many books I have to relook at and make other videos, but again, I have to use my intuitive ability, and it comes to me what I should do. And while we're at it, this guy, the Book of the Law, Aleister Crowley, video number 38. Known as the evilest man alive, in a pal with Jack Parsons, the guy who started the JPL laboratories. Jack Parsons was into rockets in California, blasting them off. The forerunner of NASA, they were all involved with NASA, the creation. And again, he was practicing the satanic rituals for some kind of ecstasy to be in some other world. And that involved killing children, sex with children, and orgies, and all this other stuff. Aleister Crowley was known as the evilest man alive. Even changed the spelling of his name so that it would be 666 in a numerology calculator. You can look everything I say up, don't believe me. And I thought I'd look at this again just because it's so interesting. But what is this other reality? What is it they see when they're in this ecstatic state? They take a drug, as you can see the name up there that I can't pronounce properly. But the picture. What is this other reality? This surreal reality. Some university professor brought this one Shama in Peru some artist materials because he was really good at art, and he wanted him to draw some pictures of what he saw when he was in the drug-induced state. There's your snake and your dragon, people inside the mouth, so when they talk about ascension, what are they talking about? What kind of world are they trying to bring about? What kind of beings are these? You can go on a used book site or somewhere and order this book. It didn't cost me but a couple dollars with all those pictures. Many more pictures here. But it just gives you some kind of insight into what this Shama thought he saw. What are we to think? Alright, with all that said, I think I'll start reading from this. And I have a few other simple props, reference materials, when it comes to certain words we'll talk about. So as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I know where I left off. I put a little arrow there, 120 part 1. So I know where I need to take off. So I've got still I have a lot of reading to do on this book. But I do a little bit at a time. As long as people have the patience and can watch the videos, I try to make each one informative and interesting, even entertaining and fascinating, if I can do that. All right. So we were talking about some of the stuff here with the golden calf. The issue that happened when Moses went up to the mountain to get the 2 tablets. It came down, and all the Jews, the Hebrews, I don't like to call them Jews, had collected the gold amongst themselves and built the golden calf and were worshiping it in a drunken orgy. So again, some kind of, I guess, tribal ritual to get them into in an ecstatic state, euphoric state, drunken state, for some kind of communion with some kind of God or beings. I don't know. So it says here, just have to start out, the authenticity of the story's core the ecstatic's vision of water hardly require proof. So even in the book of Enoch, apparently when he was asked while he was in this transported state, supposedly to heaven, the heavenly realm, and he was supposed to be having a test, and one of the angels warned him and said, hey, when you see the water, don't say you see the water. It's God. So there's this whole wall of water coming down. You've seen those things at stores or restaurants where the water comes down a wall of rock. Looks pretty cool, kind of mesmerizing. So up there in the heavenly realm, when Enoch was taken to this door, this place, the next level in heaven, he said, what do you see? And he was prepared. And he says, the heavenly God. And apparently that was the image of what I guess they saw as God. So it says here, the vision of water hardly requires proof. Nothing could be more far-fetched than to treat it as a post-festum interpretation of the Talmudic passage. There is no reason whatsoever to doubt that the mystical experience of the dangers of the ascent is really the subject of an anecdote. Similarly, dangers are described in the so-called Litany of Mithras. So apparently there's this Mithric god called Mithras, contained in the great magical papyrus of Paris, where the description of the mystical ascent shows many parallels of detail in the atmosphere with the accounts given in the greater Helaloth, the greater Helaloth. So we talked about that before, so I like to take a moment out and discuss this word, Helaloth, or however you said, Helaloth. So I went on the computer for a little further research. Helaloth, the heavenly halls of God envisioned by Jewish mystics as they ascended from one sphere to the next. So apparently the Jewish mystics, the people who were studying the Kabbalah into mysticism, were traveling into this other world. So funny about this research. It's you get little insights, baby steps along the way, if you continue to pursue it. There's how many times that I read about the spheres and I didn't get it. And the Sephiroth. Different things like that, Jewish and Kabbalistic material. Mysticism. The main text for such visionary activity was the Greater Hekaloth, which originated in the 1st century A.D. And I did go on the Yahoo image site. Any of these words or things that you have a curiosity about, or maybe not a clear understanding about, you can go on Yahoo image sites and put in almost any word, Abraham Lincoln, Merkabah, anything, ghost, and you'll see all kinds of collected images. And then each picture has a link to a website where they got the information. So apparently it's some kind of vision of the heavenly realm. There weren't many pictures here, but there's one here in the middle that kind of jumps out at me, where this guy is ascending up. And I guess this is where Abraham was instructed by God to kill his son, sacrifice his son there. Biblical stories. So when I'm reading the book, I like to understand. So they're giving an account in the atmosphere of the Greater Hekaloth. Particularly vivid descriptions are given of the Greater Hekaloth, of the last stages of the ascent. So people, while they're living in this life, they want to move beyond this life and transfer into these other realms, and supposedly, I guess, to gain information and aid from some kind of entities out there. And of course, I'm thinking of the 1/3 of the angels that were cast from heaven, the Watchers or whatever. Supposedly they were mating with human women, not part of God's plan. And they were punished for that. So you think they might be angry and want revenge? Alright, so the last stages of ascent and the passage through the 6th and 7th gates. These descriptions, however, are not uniform, but appear rather to be a compilation of various documents and traditions concerning the relevant experience of the Merkabah mystic. So again, I was talking about the Merkabah. So I suppose if I tied this to a string and just spun it around, it would look like some of these pictures I have of the Merkabah I looked up. That apparently even the channeler Barbara Marcinek, when she communicates with the Palladians or other beings channeling, has a Merkabah that she has there on her videos on YouTube. So I guess it's kind of important and relevant to the conversation. So there's different pictures of Merkabahs here. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of what they're trying to do with CERN. These are different pictures, are in different religious ancient texts. Merkabah. Trying to ascend to the realm of God. See the Merkabahs there? Maybe people are in those Merkabahs. Maybe it's some kind of ship or tool. Even in Cryon mentioned some kind of invention, the Merkabah, and he used that word Merkabah, would be given to we people on earth to help us see in the beyond. Again, you can go to Yahoo image site and do a little further research if you want to kind of get an idea of what the heck is going on. So that's what I see I have on the Merkabah. look at the words here. So that would be the Merkabah mystic. I guess the one that can use that kind of tool to do things, to ascend or to see into or hear from or get visions from this heavenly realm, whatever it is. The discussions between the traveler and the gatekeepers, apparently in this other realm there are gatekeepers, of the sixth palace, the archons, Damuel and Caspiel, archons, that's an interesting word I looked up, which takes up a good deal of space, clearly date back to early times. So of course, if you know me, I said, what are archons? So I went and looked that up this morning. I've got books on archons. But as I read this Jewish mysticism stuff, I like to get a clear mind of what I'm talking about. I like to take this complex topic of the Kabbalah, mysticism, all this religious theology, and bring it right down to earth and simple for the rest of us to understand. So this one document, I found several sources about the archons. The archon rulers are identified with the aeons, that would be the ages. Gershom Schollem's definition, so that's this guy who wrote this book, Jewish Mysticism. Major trends in Jewish mysticism. So apparently there's nothing ancient about this stuff. They're into this sacred theology, witchcraft, if you will. We see all the symbols I've been mentioning, these rituals, like in the Indiana Jones movies. The beating of the drums. And how many cities right now in the downtown areas have the beating of the drums? How many people are being drawn in? All right. Definition of an archon is simply great angel. In Rabbinic lore, the great archon is Samshiel, or Samuel, something like that, mediator between the prayers of Israel and the princes of the seventh heaven. So if you go online and look at pictures, look up Zionism or Israel and the great temple on the Yahoo image site, and you'll see pictures of these rabbis or Jewish mystics in black overcoats and curly black hair and these funny looking hats. And I've seen pictures even at the airport in Israel. They're sitting there just with some kind of book looking like a Bible going, praying constantly. Mysticism. What and who are they invoking and for what purpose? We know about bloody Zion. We know about the protocols of Zion. I made a video on the ultimate world order about a book called the Jewish Utopia. Go watch my video. And they say what the plan is, and some prophets told them that they were better than everybody else and were going to rule the whole world. Even the Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress, look this stuff up, don't believe me, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. The banksters, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati controls the USA. And this is kind of becoming common knowledge now, and they have plans for a new age and a new world order. So we might want to just think about those things and take them a little bit serious. If doom is coming, should we all be walking like zombies into our doom? Or should we be praying and getting the assistance from the heavenly realms ourselves? Crazy, you think? Another thing I got on the archons when I was looking it up, alien dreaming site, you can look this up. The Enigma of the Archons. And it's this site. I read just a little bit here. I'll go over it quickly. Human beings are on a journey of awareness, which has been momentarily interrupted by extraneous forces. And that was Carlos Castaneda who wrote that. In Magical Passes, he's the one who did that book, A Separate Reality, studied with the Mexican Shama to see visions and go into activities on the other side of the veil, the spiritual world, which is all around us, apparently. It's not like he got on a bus or a plane and went anywhere. He sat on in a yoga thing on a little mat, went into a drug-induced state, and left his body. And went off into the desert and the hills and encountered certain beings. But luckily for him, the shaman he was working with gave him some serious instructions so he could save his life. And the high strangeness of the Gnostic materials, that's what the Freemasons and other secret societies, a particular religion, a religion of knowledge. That's what Gnostic means, knowledge. But again, they do swear with the hand on the Bible if they're Christian, probably use other religious books if they're Chinese or Hindu or Arab, Muslim, Islam. Swear on those holy books that they would have their throat cut if they divulged the secrets of initiation that they're taught. That should be a little bit alarming. All right. So the high strangeness of the Gnostic materials, the strangest factor of all, is certainly the presence of the archons. Here we confront an enigma of cosmic proportions. Where do we situate these weird entities? That's what it says here. I didn't write this. You can go look it up. In the evolutionary plot of the Gaia mythos. So Gaia would be the consciousness of the earth, Mother Earth. Are they to be regarded as real entities? A species in their own right, albeit a non-terrestrial one. What is the relationship to Gaia, Mother Earth? The intelligence of the biosphere. And how do the archons in turn relate to humanity? Gnostics explored these questions. So these secret societies throughout the ages explored these questions in a sober and consistent way. But to follow in their tracks, we must first observe a caveat. Do not expect the inquiry into the archons to be rational. At least not in the ordinary sense of rationality. Aristotle stated that the mark of a mature mind is to entertain an idea without accepting it. So I talk about and share a lot of things on these videos that it's not me preaching that as gospel, as truth. I don't accept that as truth, but I want to know what's in their mind. What's been said. I can rationally come to my own conclusions. I am aware there's more to reality than I could ever know. Any of us. So I don't fear it. I have a little faith in God. I believed in Jesus, that he was sent, and that they rejected his teaching and they crucified him, and he rose from the dead. He's a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being. All human beings are. But apparently if you reject your birthright as a spiritual being, you can lose it. Without buying it, as we say today. So just because I read all this stuff, I don't sit there and say, oh, I believe that. Contraire, I don't think that. I think there's some truth in even the lies. I'm not insisting that anyone buy the archon theory of Gnosticism. I propose that we examine and sample it, that's all. Skepticism is essential. And when it comes to the enigma of the archons, I mean, even people probably don't want to accept the biblical stories of angels, watchers, and the Jesus' miracles. There's nothing you can do. They don't want to believe. They don't want to believe. But they can believe that the powers that be did make the Hunger Games movie series. And I believe they made a lot of other movies trying to show us what's coming. If we fail to see it, it'll be our own fault. Gnostic seers have to be skilled in non-ordinary reason to interpret the experiences they underwent in states of heightened perception. So when they go into these illumined state, drug-induced states, yoga, meditative states, however, Edgar Cayce wasn't using drugs when he went into these states. A lot of these channelers didn't use drugs. Not everything in the cosmos or in the human psyche can be reduced to rational terms. Not everything in the cosmos, I just said that, of course, and that in any case is not the point of the non-ordinary reasoning. So we're talking about stuff that's just non-ordinary reasoning. The point is to bring sane and sober understanding to the aspect of human experience that lie beyond the limits of the ordinary sense perception. So if all the hours of videos I've been making on the various topics, the one thing I was trying to get across, which is why I went into psychic research and all that stuff and remote viewing, is that there is something more out there than what we are aware of. And it might behoove us to investigate and try to understand. The essay treats the archons in the context of an imaginal exercise proposed in the Coco de Mur, our participation in Gaia's dreaming. What we learn about these entities and ourselves in relation to them will evolve non-ordinary reason, but it will not be irrational nonsense. So this long list of people I have here who are into channeling is real. You can get the books or go watch the video. Who and what are they communicating with? And what are these entities saying? Instructing? Cryon. Mira from the Pleiades, I'm looking at the chart. Zeta Talk, Nancy Leader. Master Helion. Lord Buddha with Christine Hayden. Daryl Anka, Bashir. Helenina Belaski, the Theophist Society. Lucifer Publishing Company, Lucifer Magazine. She was communicating with the Mahatmas, Kut Hamoni, and Morai, the Masters. I've shown the pictures. So many more on the list. We'll go over that stuff. Like I said at the beginning of this video, baby steps. A little bit at a time. Relax. Enjoy the ride. At the end of the series of videos I make a year or two from now, maybe we'll all have learned something. Got almost 400 plus hours on YouTube now. There's a lot of stuff that I made. People need to go back. Series number 1, 2, 10, 15, 20. And if you go on my website, rickmiracle.com, the top left corner, there's a link there to a list of the videos. It's not up to date, but the historic ones are all there. And print it out and have a little cheat sheet and have a little planned review of the things you're interested in, the books. And if you get interested on some of those books, go buy them, those books, and read the entire details. And inside those books, when they make certain statements, there's little tiny numbers called citations. And in the back of the book, they'll tell you where they got that information from, which is another book. And you can go on a used book site and try to get that book and read that to get a firm understanding of a particular topic. It takes a little time, but I think our souls, humanity probably depends on it. The evil people are doing this. So I think the good people ought to get involved Can't be that the evil people are the only ones with some serious willpower. The good people must have some willpower out there, other than just being apathetic, believing that ignorance is bliss. But they're mind controlling everybody. They don't want you to go research. They don't want you to believe. They want you to be in fear. Contemplating the archons is not an exercise in fantasy or a game of make-believe. Far from it. If the Gnostics were right, it is primarily by detecting how the archons work and how we can know how our own minds work and claim the sovereign power of intelligence endowed to us by Sophia. I'd like to say that it's the sovereign power, control over ourselves, of intelligence endowed to us by God. The archons may be regarded as progeny of Sophia, but not in the same sense as a species born and sustained in Gaia's womb, the terrestrial biosphere. So they say Earth is Gaia's womb, and we're all species that are born and sustained by Gaia, Mother Earth. That's what they're teaching. So please don't get the idea that I'm teaching that kind of theology. It may be some kind of analogy to the real world, like when I think that the Islamic people call Allah their God. I think they're talking about the same God. And in different countries, they have different languages and they have different names. And I found one more page that was kind of interesting here. The Kabbalah, early cosmogenic speculation. I don't get very far in these books when I go on these sidebars. Other information. The Kabbalah may be defined as being the esoteric Jewish doctrine. That's what it said here. It didn't say anybody else's doctrine. This person who wrote this said the esoteric, that's secret, Jewish doctrine. It is called in Hebrew Kabbalah and is derived from the root QBL, meaning to receive. So to receive what? Information? Some kind of Merkabah? Thing that turns around and mesmerizes or opens up a portal. So it means to receive. Wow. The Kabbalah was first taught by God himself to a select company of angels who formed the Theosophic school in paradise. Wow. After the fall, the angels most graciously communicated this heavenly doctrine to the disobedient children of earth. I just went online and was looking up archons and I found this stuff. So it says here, after the fall, that would have been when the humans, Adam and Eve, ate from the tree of knowledge, and when they were tempted by the serpent in the garden, the snake. So after the fall, when God had them escorted out of the Garden of Eden, and to toil in the earth, to have to grow food and work for a living, instead of living in paradise. The angels, some angels, I guess, went against God, most graciously communicated this heavenly doctrine to the disobedient children on earth. That's interesting. They furnish the protoplast. I guess that would be the created humans. Would they be the protoplast? With the means of returning to their priestly nobility and felicity. From Adam it passed to Noah. So are we protoplast? Are we made from earth, clay, and water? Did these angels want to help some people get back to their pristine nobility and felicity? From Adam it passed to Noah, then to Abraham, the friend of God, who immigrated with it to Egypt So they had these secrets taught by the angels, where the patriarch allowed a portion of this mysterious doctrine to ooze out. It was in this way that the Egyptians obtained some knowledge of it. So all these people were into mysticism, Kabbalistic teaching, Gnostic material, which I like to call short for witchcraft. And the reason I call it witchcraft, it's these people who use this super knowledge of how to control the reality, even kill other people through magic. They use it for their own benefit and to the detriment to the rest of us. That's my deception of witchcraft. Having this knowledge is not necessarily evil. The shamans were using it all over the earth for thousands of years. The tribe would have someone who is designated, trained from a previous shaman, and they would go to the other side and get cures and solve problems for the tribe. Give instructions to the tribe. From Peru to Russia, to Alaska, to Argentina, Australia, the Aborigines, all over the world. This was standard operational material. You had a shaman. He was the interception between the heavenly world and the human material world. When they get secret knowledge and they're using it for their power, and very perverse things, what they do with the abducting children and sacrificing them for satanic rituals, catering to evil entities, feeding evil entities on the other side. Do they consume human souls, like some of the movies have shown? It's a lot of stuff to say. Hey, but I'm just reading here. It's what it says here on this document I found this morning. So anyways, this information wound up in Egypt. We've all seen the hieroglyphics of Egypt. Apparently those hieroglyphics are where Zechariah Stitchens found the tablets, Sumerian tablets, and tell the story of the Anunnaki and planet Nibiru. So what's the truth? What's a deception? So the patriarchs allowed a portion of this mysterious doctrine to ooze out. It was in this way that the Egyptians obtained some knowledge of it, and the other Eastern nations could introduce it into their philosophical systems. Moses, who was learned in all wisdom of Egypt, was first initiated into the Kabbalah in the land of his birth, but became most proficient in it during his wanderings in the wilderness, when he not only devoted to it the leisure hours of 40 years. So he was wandering in the wilderness with the tribes of Israel, or the Hebrews, for 40 years, and he spent all his time studying this stuff. But received lessons in it from one of the angels. So he had these angelic beings teach him. Okay, so what are aliens? Why are they trying to get us to believe there's some advanced planets out there? By the aid of this mysterious science, the lawgiver was enabled to solve the difficulties which arose during his management of the Israelites in spite of the pilgrimages, wars, and frequent miseries of the nation. He covertly laid down the principles of this secret doctrine in the first 4 books of the Pentateuch, but withheld them from Deuteronomy. Moses also initiated the 70 elders into the secrets of this doctrine, and they again transmitted them from hand to hand. So just one more paragraph on this document. McGregor Matthews' Introduction to the Kabbalah Unveiled. So I've got a lot to continue reading here. And the more I learn, the more I don't mind sharing this knowledge on my videos. What are we to believe? In exactly the same way, when the true interpretations of the law, according to the command of God, divinely handed down to Moses, was revealed, it was called the Kabbalah. A word which is the same among the Hebrews as reception among ourselves. For this reason, of course, that one man from another, by sort of a hereditary right, received this doctrine, not through written records, but through a regular succession of revelations. In these books principally reside, as Eldris, with a clear voice justly declared, the spring of understanding, that is, the ineffable theology of the supersubstantial deity. So they're understanding some kind of deity. The foundation or the fountain of wisdom, that is, the exact metaphysics of the intellectual and angelic forms. So they understand how to contact these angelic beings. They know what they look like and what they are. And the stream of knowledge that is most steadfast philosophy of natural things. So they know about magic. The goal of the Kabbalah is to obtain a complete understanding of God, the universe, and the interrelationships. It strives to achieve this understanding through the use of symbols and analogies, particularly the Jewish holy books. So just think about it. This is their cultural history, the Jewish people. This is a book here. Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism. And throughout thousands of years, wherever these Jewish people went, this is not anti-Semitic material. These people are not even real Hebrews. This is documented fact in the Encyclopedia Judaica and many other books. We'll go over the Encyclopedia Judaica again and again and again to show that they had a problem wherever they went for thousands of years. The people who were into the Kabbalah, these teachings handed down, I guess, by some angels. And apparently, they have, according to prophecy, they have some intentions to rule the world, enslave the people, depopulate the planet for sustainability reasons, so they think. They don't want to feed unwanted people. Even Tex Mars was talking on a video with Jeff Rentz today. That China, with 1.3 billion people, some major companies have decided to, it's much more efficient to use robots. So what are all these people going to do for work? The government's not going to go out of its way and have the robots working to provide food for everybody, that we live a humane, at least, life, decent life. Just what will be the solutions? All right, it's another day, Sunday, May 21st, 2017. I want to continue the video. Part 2, Major Trends in Jewish Mysticism. And let me tell you, the story gets more bizarre. I wish I was kidding. Think about their gay coalition. The Sodomites, Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, Babylon, the ancient religions, Sabbatianism, Frankinism, where apparently sex is a huge part. I guess, how to describe it? Uninhibited sex with anything, pansexualism, transgenderism, sex with animals. Bizarre stuff. Apparently that's why the Watchers, the angels sent to planet Earth when God created mankind, to guide and watch over mankind. But apparently they found the human women fair and wanted to mate with them. and created some kind of offspring called the Nephilim, and so much more craziness that I've been discovering, continuing to read. Major trends in Jewish mysticism. So why for thousands of years, and this is fact, it's in the Encyclopedia Judaica and many other books, historic books about the United States, Henry Ford's books, Germany, all the famous writers, the Masonic books, Freemasonry. Sex is a big part of witchcraft. And apparently, like the seventh commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. And I think that kind of means adulterated practice of sex in its many facets and forms. It clearly says in the Bible, man shouldn't lay with mankind. So, anyways, I'll start reading and just show you some pictures I've discovered. And again, maybe we can figure out what the heck is going on. Okay, to sum it up, it would appear that the Merkabah mystics were led by logical steps in the direction of mystical prayer, without, however, having developed anything like a mystical theory of prayer. One is perhaps justified in seeing a first step towards such a theory in a characteristic exaggeration of the significance of Israel's prayer in this celestial realm. Only when Israel has sung, may the angels join in. So only when Israel has sung, may the angels join in. One of them, Shimuni, the great archon, so an archon is in a great angel, stands at the window of heaven as a mediator between the prayers of Israel, which rise from below, and the citizens of heaven, the citizens of the seventh heaven, to whom he transfers them. Shemuel, an angel. The angel who bears the name of Israel stands in the center of heaven and leads the heavenly choir with the call, God is King. God was King. God will ever be King. But great though the importance of prayer undoubtedly is for him, the Merkabah, mystic, so it's some kind of mystic, magician, who believes in some kind of spiritual realm or entity, who pours out his heart in ecstatic and spontaneous hymns, seeks no mysteries beyond the words of prayer. The assent of the words has not yet substituted itself for the assent of the soul in the devotee himself. So the ascent of the soul into this heavenly realm. And the Shemuel, funny thing, Muel, the great archon, stands at the window of heaven as a mediator between the prayers of Israel, which rise from below, and then they want to ascend up. So I looked up Shemuel, the angel. It gets bizarre. You can go look it up, Yahoo image site. It gets bizarre. Is there a kind of a theme here? Even got a gray alien there. And a dark beast there, man with the satanic symbols on the corner there. So I guess we can see sexuality in this. A Lucifer looking type dude with wings. Gray alien. And even the women, there you go, whatever. I'm just wondering, does this start to explain some things? I don't make this up, I just read words in this famous man's Gershom Scholem, probably saying his name wrong, person who was quite educated in the things Jewish and the religion. So beings like that stand at the gate, the mediator between the Israel and the heaven. The assent of the words have not yet substituted itself for the assent of the soul and the devotee himself. The pure word, the as yet unbroken summons, stands for itself. It signifies nothing but what it expresses. But it is not surprising that when the fire out of which these prayers have streamed to heaven, out of the fire out of which these prayers have streamed to heaven, had burned low, a host of nostalgic souls stirred the ashes, looking in vain for the spirit which had departed. We have seen that the God of the Merkabah, mystics, is the holy king who emerges from the unknown worlds and descends through 955 heavens. 955 heavens? To the throne of glory. The mystery of this God in his aspect of creator of the universe is one of those exalted subjects of esoteric secret knowledge which are revealed to the soul of the mystic in the ecstatic ascent. Ecstatic ascent. So I'm familiar with those pictures of the Jewish mystics, Kabbalists, whatever they are, poking little holes in a little boy with long needles and putting pincers on him to increase the torment and pain. They don't want him to die too quickly. Apparently, as we all know, that probably would release some kind of hormone into the blood, the agony and pain. And they were collecting the blood in buckets and drinking it. And in those pictures, you can look this up, child sacrifice, Jewish child sacrifice. This picture's on the internet and books. I've gone over them. I've showed them. But apparently drinking that blood with the hormone puts the people into an ecstatic, it's a drug, state. At least we forget the shamans and many other people all over the world for thousands of years were using things like peyote or ayahuasca, different kinds of drugs to go into a trance or an induced state. So one can only imagine drinking that blood, what that would do. I went into my library of the Encyclopedia Judaica and just looked up blood libel. This is what they were accused of. See, they're collecting the blood. Crazy. So I'm just wondering, does that blood ritual. I made a video on this book, and I'll be making another one. Just trying to figure out, what is this religion? Why would the Jewish people, the Hebrews, or the people who practice the Kabbalah have trouble wherever they went for a couple thousand years? What's up? Alright, so back to the book. So the mystery of this God and his aspect of creator and the universe is one of those exalted subjects of esoteric knowledge. That would be occult secret, which is revealed to the soul of the mystic in the ecstatic ascent. So drinking the blood from a sacrificed child, would that help them in some kind of ecstatic ascent? And what's with those pictures of the Shemuel angel? I just look up the words when I find them in this material. It is of equal importance with the vision of the celestial realm. What does heaven look like? The celestial realm. The songs of the angels and the structure of the Merkabah. We saw what the Merkabah was. See that person in the Merkabah? Like I said, you got to take this real slow to try to figure out this religion, this occult. Because remember, the secret societies, the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, all these other cults, witchcraft covens, the Illuminati, all into these cults. As per people who have testified on many YouTube videos and many books which I've had, some I've gone over, more I will go over. But I want to find out what it is these people, if they're people, what they're into. What's this plan, New Age and New World Order? The Jewish utopia, as per Professor Higgins. All this craziness we see on TV and the movies, and changing the social structure, the paradigm we all live in. The song of the angels and the structure of the Merkabah. We just looked at the Merkabah again. According to an account given in the Greater Haloth, I guess that's like a description of heaven, which one is tempted to correlate with a similar passage at the end of the 4th book of Urza. And they call Israel right now Urza Israel in the Encyclopedia Judaica. So I kept wondering, why do they keep calling it Urza Israel? Urza, we all know it as Israel. But I'm seeing the 4th book of Urza. It was even the custom to place scribes of the stenographers to the right and left of the visionary, who wrote down his ecstatic descriptions of the throne and his occupants. So even when I grew up, I've been to a Baptist church a few times, and some people go into an ecstatic state and start speaking in tongues. Well, apparently here they go into an ecstatic state, and they have stenographers on the right and left of the visionary, the person going into the ecstatic state, to make drawings of and write down what he describes. That is the mystic in his rapture. That the mystic in his rapture even succeeded in penetrating beyond the sphere of the angels is suggested in a passage which speaks of the God who is beyond the sight of his creatures and hidden to the angels who serve him. but who has revealed himself to Rabbi Akiba in the vision of the Merkabah. So in his ecstatic state, I guess you could say he was in a trance, and he had visions of Merkabahs. I think I have more pictures here. A little bizarre. Makes you wonder about CERN and kind of a lot of other things that I've been going over. It is this new relationship, at once strange and forbidding, which we encounter in the most paradoxical of all of these tracts, the one which is known under the name of Shira Koma, literally translated to measure of the body of God. So I looked up the Shira Koma. Weren't too many pictures, but it seems to be the tree of life there. And this flying thing here. From the very beginning, the frank and almost provocative anthropomorphism of the Shira Koma aroused the bitterest antagonism among all Jewish circles, which held aloof from mysticism. So a lot of Jewish circles weren't into this mysticism, but apparently this anthropomorphism, almost provocative, of the Shihar Komarth aroused the bitterest antagonism. So of course I had to go look up anthropomorphism. You can find these words. It just gets more bizarre. I didn't even know what that word meant. But a picture will help you understand. You see that man that's got a dog's head? And here a cat's head, a bird's head. So I guess it gives us a glimpse of what anthropomorphism is. This guy, and even in the pictures with the Illuminati celebrations, weren't they humans with all these heads, like with deer antlers and all kinds of bizarre things? Part of these satanic rituals? There's one here. A cat head, and even a kid with a cat head. So, wow. I keep reading here, it keeps getting weirder. This is a serious insight or research into Jewish mysticism. This isn't a cartoon book. Conversely, all later mystics and Kabbalists, here we go, came to regard its dark and obscure language as a symbol of profound and penetrating spiritual visions. The antagonism was mutual, for it is in this attitude towards androphenomenism that Jewish rational theology and Jewish mysticism have parted company. You'd think some Jewish people would say, man, you guys are crazy. So it was in mythology, half human, half horse, whatever. Different kinds of animals, snakes, fishes. And again, if you've ever studied anything about Atlantis and the sinking of those continents, apparently when the people there were fleeing the destruction, some of them went to Central, South America, North America. Some of them went to Egypt, around the world. And apparently in Egypt there was huge battles and fighting because the Atlanteans back then were, whether you want to call it mating or some kind of genetic manipulation, were creating grotesque creatures for warriors, workers, sex slaves, and everything else. It horrified the Egyptians back then. And you can see the pictures on the hieroglyphics. The fragment in question, of which several different texts are extant, describes the body of the Creator. So they're saying the body of God, in close analogy to the description of the body of the beloved one in the 5th chapter of the Song of Solomon. So we know now with the Freemasons and many other organizations, Israel itself, Zionist, they are determined to rebuild King Solomon's temple. And apparently King Solomon had a 6-pointed ring that he could use to call forth demons. Jesus in the Bible cast out many demons, and there's all kinds of stories of this other heavenly realm. Giving enormous figures for the length. So the Song of Solomon talks about the size of God, of each organ. At the same time, it indicates the secret names of the various organs which help of letters and configuration, which to us are meaningless. Whoever knows the measurements of our Creator and the glory of the Holy One, praise be to Him, which are hidden from the creatures, is certain of his share of the world to come. So I guess if you know the measurements of this God, you're something valuable information, and you're going to share in the world to come, according to these mystics, Kabbalists, I kind of call witchcraft and sorcery. That's just me. And I'm sure there's a lot of secret knowledge that's valuable. Shamans all over the world have used it to help people. But it seems like there's something weird going on in the world right now, trying to bring about this Hunger Games or Mad Max type reality. Somebody has an intent. Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiba, the two heroes of Merkabah mysticism, appear as the guarantors of this sweeping promise provided in the Mishnah is daily repeated. So the Mishnah, I think, is some kind of book or prayer the Jewish do, and it says here, daily repeated. Is that concerning? So far, what I'm talking about and showing in these pictures? Jewish mysticism. What is really meant by these monstrous length measurements is not made clear. The enormous figures have no intelligible meaning or sense content, and it is impossible really to visualize the body of the Shekinah. The body of the Shekinah, the Creator. Well, you know me, I had to go look up Shekinah. And I found some interesting pictures. I didn't see anything that really looks like a body. But I see these girls with the upside down star, which is Satanism. And I see some other occult stuff. I see a picture of a snake. So you can go look this stuff up and read. One more page here. Here's a picture of a god, I guess. That top thing. Other beings are here. More interesting occult symbols. Here's one of two men. It says lovers on the Shekinah. I had to cross out the bottom part of that woman. It was quite not for children content. How's that? So the body of the Shekinah has the two guys as lovers, the naked woman in a bondage position, the other women with the stars of the devil on them. Some weird things, and there's links to these pictures. You can, if you want to go look it up. And the way you spell the word is right here. All right, moving on. Which they purport to describe. They are better calculated, on the contrary, to reduce every attempt at such a vision of obscurity. The units of measurements are cosmic. The height of the Creator is, let's just say the Creator's miles high and miles long. It's cosmic. I think I've seen pictures about something about that. But the meaning of the parasang of God is 3 miles, the measure. And a mile has 10,000 yards, 3 spans. So they go into explaining it. It's just some vision that they have of God is cosmic. Big thing in the sky. But a feeling for the transmundane and the numerous still glimmers through those blasphemous sounding figures and monstrous groupings of secret names. God's holy majesty takes on flesh and blood, as it were, in these enormous numerical relationships. At any rate, the idea of God as king lends itself more easily to such symbolic expression than the conception of God as spirit. Again, we see that it is the exaltation of his kingship, his theophany, which appealed to these mystics, not his spirituality. The appearance of the face is that of like the cheekbones, and both are like the figure of the spirit and the form of the soul, and no creature may recognize it. So they're describing what they think God, well, with the visions told them what God looks like. His body is like chrysolite. His light breaks tremendously from the darkness. The clouds and fog are around him, and all the princes of the angels and the Sephirim are before him like an empty jar. So I saw the word Sephirim, and you know me. This is God. They just described him right here. Huge. Like some kind of chrysolite rock. And he glows in the darkness. And around him is darkness, clouds, and fog. But princes of the angels and Seraphim are before him like an empty jar. So I looked up Sephirim. These beings crazy? Okay. Therefore, no measure is given to us, but only secret names are revealed to us. In the writings of the 2nd and 3rd century Gnostics, Gnosticism is, I guess, part of the theology, religion of like the Freemasonry organizations, Rosicrucian, many others, means secret knowledge. Is in certain Greek and Coptic texts, which frequently reflect a mystical spiritualism, we find a similar species of mystical anthropomorphism, so another species of people half human and half something else, with references to the body of the Father or the body of truth. So they're trying to say that God is half human looking and half other kind of creature looking. Gastar has pointed out that the significance of such instances of anthropomorphism, half man and half other kind of creature, in the writings of the 2nd century Gnostic Marcos, we all remember mythology with all those creatures, half human, half other kind of being, described by some scholars as Kabbalistic, which are hardly less bizarre and obscure than the analogous examples in the Shihar Koma. The fact probably is that this form of speculation originated among heretical mystics, who had all but broken with Rabbinic Judaism. So we can say some Jewish people are off on this, became heretics. They weren't following the religious lines. They were going on their own way, which apparently is some kind of satanic way. So when we wonder today, when we talk about Zionism and Jews being blamed for all kinds of things, the banksters, who would use and abuse and destroy and torture and the rest of us, it's not all Jews. And it's not necessarily all Jews that do it either. A lot of other human being entities have joined them, and maybe some kind of entities that are not human. I like to reduce this kind of investigation to plain spoken English, so anybody can understand. That's why I use the pictures. I didn't even understand those words, but the pictures help. At some date, this school or group must have blended with the Rabbinic Gnosticism, developed by the Merkabah visionaries. Did you catch all that? So apparently more Rabbinic Jews were joining in this secret knowledge and reading and learning about the Merkabah visionaries, i.e. the form of Jewish Gnosticism which tried to remain true to the Halakhic tradition. So I haven't looked up the Halakhic tradition. Here we come inevitably to the question, whose bodily dimensions are the subject of these fantastic descriptions? The prophet, even who prophets are, I guess angels or God or whatever, speaks to people and tells them things that they need to go tell the other people, warnings, whatever, prophets. The prophet Ezekiel saw on the throne of the Merkabah, so he sees God's throne apparently in the Merkabah, a figure similar to that of a man. Does it not seem possible that among the mystics who wrote of the Shemar Koma, this figure was identified with the primordial man of contemporary Iranians from Iran, speculation, which thus made up its entry into the world of Jewish mysticism? Going a step further, we may ask whether there did not exist, at any rate among the Merkabah mystics, to whom we owe the preservation of the Shirha Koma, a belief in the fundamental distinction between the appearance of God, the Creator, or the demiurge, i.e., one of his aspects, and his indefinable essence. So then I said, demiurge? So they're saying that demiurges are different aspects of their God. So what's a demiurge? D-E-M-I-U-R-G-E. So I looked it up. You wonder about some of the cartoons and TV shows and why they're using those characters in some of the TV programming. Demiurge. So I'm reading a serious book on the investigation into major trends in Jewish mysticism. And I'm finding all this, seemingly to me, bizarre stuff. Alright. One of his aspects, so we've seen the pictures of the demiurge, and his indefinable essence. There is no denying the fact that it is precisely the poor immortal man on the throne of the Merkabah, whom the Shira Komoth called Yasar Bershite, i.e., the creator of the world. The significant and doubtless a deliberate designation. As is well known, the anti-Jewish Gnostics of the 2nd and 3rd centuries drew a sharp distinction between the unknown, strange, good God and the Creator, whom they identified with, and the God of Israel. Wow. I'll read that again. As is well known, the anti-Jewish Gnostics of the 2nd and 3rd centuries drew a sharp distinction between the unknown, strange, good God and the Creator whom they identified with, and the Creator whom they identified with the God of Israel. So the people of Israel, their vision of a God, and then of course the anti-Jewish Gnostics had a different view or concept. They didn't agree. It may be that the Shehar Komot reflects an attempt to give a new turn to this trend of thought, which had become widespread throughout the Near East, by postulating something like a harmony between the Creator and the true God. A dualism of the Gnostic kind would of course have been unthinkable for Jews. Instead, the demiurge became, by the exercise of mystical anthropomorphism, something that looks like a human and an animal, the appearance of God on the throne of glory, at once visible and yet by virtue of his transcendent nature, incapable of being really visualized. So transcendent nature. So we got that word again. Demiurge. I like to look at the picture when I read and try to get a visualization of what they're talking about. Why they would have people disagreeing with them that this was not the God they wanted to be, that was part of their God, the anti-Jewish mystics, Gnostic mystics. If this interpretation is correct, we should be justified in saying that the Shira Komoth referred not to the dimensions of the divinity, but to those of its corporeal appearance. So corporeal means, let's say a spirit is in spiritual form, and it manifests itself like a human flesh, that would be corporeal. So they have to bring themselves into this earthly existence. And I looked up corporeal on Yahoo Images, and I wish I had not. I saw some images that were just too bizarre for me. This is clearly the interpretation of the original text. Already the lesser halachot, I guess, vision of what heaven looks like you've seen a picture of New York City or a picture of Chicago. So they have a lesser halachot. Interpret the intro for Mormonism of the Shehar Komath as a representation of the hidden glory. Thus, for example, Rabbi Akibi says, "He is like us, as it were, but greater than everything, and that is his glory which is hidden from us." So they're describing God here. All right, continuing on here. Is this story a little bizarre? What is the Jewish religion? What is the Kabbalistic theology? What do they teach? What do they believe? What are the people in the Illuminati, witchcraft? What do they believe? What is real? I told that one story about the people, the two families who decided to go hiking for the day. And they were walking along this ridge high up, and they saw down below what appeared to be a witch's coven. If you don't know what that looks like, they have a big circle, and the witches all get in the circle, many times naked. And they have a ritual. Well, anyways, in this particular cape, in the midst of them appeared this gigantic, much bigger than the humans, reptilian being, maybe looking like the devil, I don't know. And they were up on the ridge, these people were stunned, and they decided this is crazy. And this reptilian being looked up towards the ridge and saw them. And he had probably been manifested by these witches in this coven. And the people on the ridge saw that he saw them, and they fled for their life. And they were running down the trail, and instantly in front of them he appeared. Well, thankfully, he didn't do anything to them. And they left, and they managed to, the story got out there. True or not, I'm just saying that's one of the stories. It'd be kind of hard to make that story up, but that's the story. So what are we dealing with these beings and entities and these kinds of satanic religions? What is reality? What does it have to do with everything with the New Age and the New World Order and the bizarro stuff on TV and the movies? Things happening in the world, 9/11, killing all the Arabs, bombing all their cities, deporting them to Europe, United States, and creating an economic system that's more authoritarianism. So we'll all be living under the authorities like animals. Who do these people think they are? What are they? And who do they worship? So it says like this about their God. He is like us, as it were, but greater than everything, and that is his glory which is hidden from us. This conception of God's hidden glory, which forms the subject of much theosophitical speculation, is almost identical, as we have seen, with the term employed for the object of their deepest veneration by the actual representatives of the Mishnah. I think there's a Mishnah book, Jewish book, Merkabah mysticism, among them the historical Rabbi Akibi. One has only to compare it with the relevant passage of the Shir HaKomah. So I've got a long ways to go to kind of get more in depth on some of these things, where it says, whoever knows the measurements of the Creator and the glory of the Holy One, praise be to him. The term employed, Shova Hashkadishk, signifies not only praise of God, but in this context, that would be without any meaning but glory, being the equivalent of the Aramaic word for glory. So like I said, this is sort of a technical book for people who want to study the major trends in mysticism. The reference, in short, is not to God's praise, but to the vision of his glory. Later, when the glory of God had become identified with the Shekinah, did I look up that word? The alphabet of the Rabbi Akabi referred to the body of the Shekinah as the subject of the Shahar Komath. Just looking at my pictures here. So whatever came up when I looked up Shekinah. There's a serpent down there. Some kind of woman in some kind of situation. His hands on that tree of life. So it's kind of hard to get your mind around some of this stuff. The employment of this term is proof that its authors had in mind not the substance of divinity, but merely the measurements of its appearance. Can you measure the divine? Shahar Komath's speculation is already to be found in the earliest Heloloth text, and must be counted among the older possessions of Jewish Gnosticism. Grant's theory, Gretz, G-R-A-E-T-Z, theory is that it came into being at the late date under the influence of Muslim anthropomorphics. Again, the beings that are half human and half something else, some kind of hybrid human or other kind of creature creation. So apparently the Muslims had a influence on that. Tendency is entirely fallacious and has confused matters down to our own day. If there can be any question of external influence, it was certainly the other way around. This is also borne out by the assertion of Arab dioxograph Shahrastia, not, it is true, an altogether reliable witness that these ideas made their way from Jewish into Muslim circles. Still less it is possible to agree with Bloch's hypothesis that the Shahar Komath, with its exaggerations and its dull dryness, was intended for school children. The curious tendency of some 19th century Jewish scholars to treat profoundly mythical and mystical references to God, that the world is pedagogical, for the benefit of small children, is certainly one of the most remarkable examples of misplaced criticism and insensitiveness to the character of religious phenomenon which this period has produced. The Shahar Komath is not only subject of mystical vision in this group. There are several others, some of which undoubtedly originate from entirely different sources, but were more or less closely mixed up with the Shahar Komath during the period when all these various tendencies crystallized in the classical Heloloth literature. To the later mystics, this presented what appeared to be, on the whole, a uniform picture. The most important of these deviations from the main current of the Metatron mysticism Another word, Metatron mysticism, which revolves around the person of Enoch. I've been doing the videos on the book of Enoch. I've got one more to do. After a lifetime of piety, was raised, according to the legend, to the rank of first angel, to the rank of the first of the angels, and Sarharpin, literally Prince of the Divine Face, or Divine Presence. So Enoch was ranked above the angels, put in charge. And Prince of the Divine Face, that would have been Prince of, I guess, God, the Divine Presence, God. God took me from the midst of the race of the flood and carried me on the stormy wings of the Shekahath to the highest heaven, and brought me into the great palaces of the heights of the seventh heaven, Arabath, where there are the throne of the Shekinah and the Merkabah, the legions of anger and host of wrath. Wow. Legions, like whole armies, of anger and host of wrath. You don't want to feel my wrath. Just showing you the meaning of the word here, so I'm pronouncing it correctly. The Shahanev of fire, the cherubim, those little baby-like creatures with wings, cherubim of flaming torches, the Ophanim of the fiery coals, the servants of the flames, and the Sephirim of the lightning, and he stood me there daily to serve the throne of glory. This Enoch, whose flesh was turned to flame, his veins to fire, his eyelashes to flashes of lightning, his eyeballs to flaming torches, to whom God placed on the throne next to the throne of glory, received after this heavenly transformation the name Metatron. That sounds like quite a creature. Yeah, I looked up the picture for Metatron. Why not? What is this Jewish religion? This culture? What? The visions of the heavenly travelers, Enoch, the visions of the heavenly traveler Enoch, as set out in the Ethiopic and Slavonic books of Enoch. Like I said, I've made some videos on the book of Enoch. I've got one more to do. Have become in the Enoch book of the Merkabah mystics accounts given to Rabbi Ishmael by Metatron of his metamorphosis, and of the hierarchy of the throne and the angels. Hierarchy of the throne and the angels. It is impossible to overlook the steady line of development in this Enoch mysticism. Moreover, the Hebrew book, the book of Enoch, is not the only link between the earlier Enoch legend and the later Jewish mysticism. Some of the oldest mythical Moffats stories are not found in that book. but in an extremely interesting, from a mythographical point of view, the magical text, the Havdaloth of Rabbi Akiba, the Havdaloh. So a magical text, the Havdaloth, to which several as yet unpublished manuscripts are in existence. Well, I guess we'll have to look at that because I went and found some pictures. So apparently this is some kind of Jewish celebration, as we can see here by the picture. And they use candles. So in a lot of this stuff I had to go look at pictures. So the magical text, and they have that Jewish celebration, which several of yet unpublished manuscripts are in existence. In the greater Helaloth, the description of heaven, on the other hand, we find Metatron mentioned only once. It was after the beginning of the 2nd century AD, probably not earlier, that the patriarch Enoch, one of the leading fathers, was identified following his metamorphosis with the angel Yoholi, or Yoel, who occupies an important and sometimes dominant position in the earliest documents of throne mysticism and of the apocalypses. So the patriarch Enoch, following his metamorphosis, so his transformation, it's like if I just transferred into a glowing angel right here in this chair, like that picture right there in the top middle, that would be a metamorphosis. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. So apparently Enoch, the book of Enoch, had a metamorphosis into an angel. The most important characteristics of this angel are now transferred to Metatron. We also find Yoheli as the first in various list of the 70 names of Metatron. So they have 70 names of Metatron. I'm familiar with the 72 names of God. Magic words apparently they can use in this kind of magic witchcraft, whatever you want to call it. It's a good way to understand it by calling it that. They have power. They can do things. 70 names of Metatron compiled in the Genoic period, 7th to 11th centuries. The Babylonian Talmud contains only 3 references to Metatron, and the most important of these passages is meaningless if thought to refer to the name Metatron. It refers to the tradition from the beginning of the 4th century. According to which Metatron is the angel to whom it is said in Exodus, in the Bible I guess, "Beware of him, for my name is in him." Wow. The explanation is to be found in the 10th chapter of the Apocalypse of Abraham, already mentioned several times, where the angel Yaholi says to Abraham, "I am called Yaholi." Yahweh, a power in virtue of the ineffable name that is dwelling in me, and that name is Yahweh, contains the name of God is obvious. Yahlo being an abbreviation of the tetragrammation Yiwah, WHWH, which was used especially often in the text bearing the Jewish Hellenistic synchronism, the same Yahweh is referred in the Jewish Gnostic literature as a lesser Yahweh, a term which at the end of the 2nd century had already made its way into the non-Jewish Gnostical literature, but which it also retained by the Merkabah mystics as the most exalted cognomen of Metatron, one which to outsiders seemed to border on blasphemy. Also in the Talmudic passage cited above, the assumption that the verse in Exodus 24-1, ascend to Yahweh, refers to Metatron, seems to contain an implicit recognition of the latter as the lesser Yoho, which he becomes explicitly in later text. Did you catch all that? I've got just a little bit left here to go, and I'm going to finish this video. In the Apocalypse of Abraham, Yoheli appears as the spiritual teacher of the patriarch. Enoch? So he had a spiritual teacher. Or was that Abraham? It's Abraham, sorry. Yahweh appears as the spiritual teacher of the patriarch, to whom he explains the mysteries of the throne world and the last judgment, exactly as Metatron does in the Holoth tracts, the books. Abraham is here the prototype of the novice who is initiated into the mystery, just as he appears as the end of the Sefer Yeserat, the Book of Creation, a document the precise age of which is not known, but the character of which I will propose to discuss at the end of this lecture. In the Apocalypse, we find him being initiated into the mysteries of the Merkabah. Just as the Sefer Yeserat, he is allowed to penetrate into the mysteries of his cosmogonical speculation. It is somewhat surprising to read in the manuscript originating among the 12th century Jewish mystics in Germany that Yahweh was Abraham's teacher and taught him the whole of the Torah, the Jewish Bible, one of the Jewish books, was Abraham's teacher and taught him the whole of the Torah. The same document also expressly mentions Yahweh as the angel who, in the above-mentioned Talmudic passage, invites Moses to ascend to heaven. Almost finished here. The most widely accepted interpretation being that according to which Metatron, in short for Metatronics, he who stands beside the God's throne, or he who occupies the throne next to the divine throne. So the way I understand it, Jesus sits next to the throne of God. Mention of this throne is indeed made in the later Hebrew book of Enoch, but there is not the slightest suggestion that the authors saw any connection between the name of the archon, that would be angel, and his throne. So I was always wondering what archons were. Alright, I got this last little bit. It is quite possible that the word Metatron was chosen on strictly symbolic grounds and represents one of the innumerable secret names which abound in the Heloloth text, the books, no less than on the Gnostical knowledge, writings, or in magical papyri, so magical text. Suggests that the word was pronounced Metatron rather than Metatron. So they're just discussing some of the technical pronunciations here. In the often highly imaginative descriptions of the angelic sphere, which one finds in the Hebrew book of Enoch of the Merkabah period, Metatron's rank is always placed very high. Nevertheless, the classical writings of the Merkabah school contain no suggestions that he is to be regarded as being one with the glory that appears on the throne. So they're not trying to say Metatron is actually God. Throughout this literature, Metatron, or whatever name is given to him, remains in the position of the highest of all created beings, while the occupant of the throne, revealed in the Shahar Korah, is after all the Creator himself. No attempt is made to bridge the gulf. What has been said of the relationship of the mystic, somebody that was into this magic Kabbalistic research, in his ecstasy towards his God, is true also of the supreme exaltation of the Prince of Angels himself. The latter, incidentally, is also called Anaphile. So the Prince of Angels himself, called Anaphile, according to an independent tradition which has found its reflection in the greater Halahoth. Got to look up that book, Hekaloth. Try to learn how to say the word properly. And the characteristics given to this angel make it clear that Anaphile is not simply one more name for Metatron, but is the name of another figure, which for some mystics retained that supreme rank. So you know me, I had to go find out what this angel Anaphile revealed when I went into the Yahoo image site. Anafiel. Well, some pretty significant pictures there. I got links to these pictures on the Yahoo image site. And it tells you the story. Some of it's probably important and relevant. Some of it's probably just amusing. An angel. So here I am as a normal, everyday citizen of the planet Earth. Raised as a Christian, went to Catholic school even. What did I know about Gnosticism, Kabbalistic teachings, mysticism, witchcraft? This religion of the culture of the Jewish people historically. And of course, just like Christians today, not a lot of people take Christianity serious. Some people who grew up Christian decided to become agnostic or atheists. So I'm sure in the Jewish communities, a lot of people, like it even said in this material, were anti-Jewish Gnosticisms or mysticisms. They all weren't into witchcraft. But apparently, it appears to be these people, which in this series, Freemasonry and Satanism, the people who want to bring about this new age and new world order, who are doing all kinds of horrific things, sacrificing people, even having groups of people who are into these occult organizations, Illuminati, witchcraft, or whatever else kind of names they give themselves, but either sacrificing people or sexual orgies like the Bohemian Grove. A lot of those kinds of situations that people escaped the Illuminati and talked about these kinds of events. Sex with children, sacrificing of children. We seem to have some very evil, malevolent forces from some other realm who don't see reality like the most of us would think it is. Normal family values. You say the word normal now, and half the people down on the city street will look at you and exclaim, there is no such thing as normal. I even went to get a haircut once at a business meeting, and I wanted to look sharp, and I said, give me a nice normal haircut. And the gay hairdresser man said, he got angry. He said, there's no such thing as normal. I got up out of my chair and left the facility. So I'm saying the mind control is there. There is this thing from some kind of other spiritual realm. I don't think it's from some galactic federation and advanced planetary civilizations coming here to save us. I suspect it's something to do with these beings from another dimension, mentioned in the Bible, cast out angels, whatever you will. But let's just say they are creating, and have created, have already done it, 9/11, World War I, World War II, and so much more documented, historical, devastating things on planet Earth. They've been into this satanic stuff for a long time. It's gruesome. I guess we, the people, ought to at least look into it and wake up. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.